Are they just starting the recording? Okay.
Yeah, I just noticed it was off, so go ahead, Carol.
They missed all the beginning. Okay. Okay, so I was telling how I got started with dowsing and how I do water. Now, as we dowsers evolve over time, we learn more. We learn from our own experiences with dowsing, and we also learn from other people's experiences. And so it's an evolving process. So at that time, when I first was learning, I'd just go out and hold up my L rod, and I'd say, which direction is the water? And I'd walk in the direction with 2 rods, and I would just say, show me where the water is, and it would open up. But as I evolved, it's become much better. Now what I do is I ask for a map. Either they can draw it or they can send me a Google map, it doesn't matter, or their map that they got when they bought the property. And I will dowse it ahead of time. I have my own method of map dowsing. I took a course one time in it, and that got me so confused I decided I would do the way I did, which was successful. So I dowse where the tributaries or spring or whatever is on their land, and I mark it on my little map so that when I go to the property, it is so much easier to find it. I know which side of the property it's on, the left, the right, the north, the south. And so I don't waste a lot of time walking around. And when I get there, sometimes there's a whole crowd waiting for me. They're so curious as to what dowsers are doing, and their neighbors want to come and so forth, and I don't care. But I said when I start, I needed to be quiet the first bit because I have to do a meditation first. And then you can follow me as long as you stay 10 to 15 feet away and don't talk. Because I said I have to focus, and if you're all yakking to each other, then it cuts my focus and I might make a mistake, and I don't want that. So I say my meditation, and in my meditation is my equation for what I'm looking for. And what I'm looking for is the perfect spot for the well, and not too far from the house, and not too deep. And I also want it to be drinkable to my standards, and my standards are pretty high. I have to have really good water. I grew up with good water, and I really, there are state guidelines that you can get for each state. And so it will tell you how many feet from the border. Some are 75. Most of them now are 100 feet. So I take that all into consideration. And that's all in my equation that I put in my focus, which is in my third eye. So when I stop and do my meditation, I'm calming myself, I'm focusing, and I'm tuning into the water that is drinkable, not too deep, not too far from the house, not close to the septic system, 100 feet from that. This is all in my equation, and as you take classes, you will learn all the things to put in your equation. And as I say, when I go, I find it, and I mark 2 spots. The reason I do 2 spots is because sometimes one spot is hard for the rig to get to. Sometimes they have to cut down trees and make a road depending on where. And sometimes the grade of the hillside is too much and the rig can't get to that spot. But the first spot I find is always the best. And so the second spot, instead of 15 gallons per minute, may only have 8. But if the rig can't get to it, then 8 is usually enough for a family. So I could stop and answer questions, or I can tell you some stories of some of the jobs that I have done. Probably this story.
Please go ahead and tell us your stories. We'd love to hear them.
Well, we dowsers all have such unbelievable stories, and some people say they're too unbelievable, but so many different things happen. The first story is about an engineer who lived in southern New Hampshire, and he bought this lovely piece of property and built his house and called the well drillers to come in, and they drilled down. I don't remember. I haven't read it recently, but I think it's 700 or 800 feet dry spot. Then they came in and they thought, well, they'll go deeper in a different spot, and they went 1,300 feet dry spot. So then they came back in and said, well, I think that it should be here, 930 feet dry spot. Well, we can go deeper. And he said, no, I just go away and let me think. Well, he didn't know what to do because here he had a beautiful house on a beautiful piece of property. They were just about done building the house and needed to get that water in next and were waiting, and they couldn't get any water. So one of their friends suggested they call me a dowser. And so he called very skeptical and asked about my dowsing ability. And I told him the other dowser. I said I have a few testimonies, and I never ask for testimony. Only if they offer do I get them. And so he said, okay, come do it. And we agreed on the price, and I went to his house, and I usually take my husband, and he takes the sledgehammer and pounds in. We do it very official and very professional because we think that's important. They don't expect a woman, though. Usually they expect an old man in jeans with a big hat, but that's okay. So I get there, and we find the spot, and first he says, well, I want to show you where they want to go next. So we went over there and dowsed around. There's nothing here. This is just going to be a waste of money. So I showed him the spot, and he really hated to do it there because it was some trees there, and they'd have to build a little road and take the trees down. But there was nothing else that was really as good except one spot right practically on the property line. And he didn't want to involve the neighbor and get his permission and have him, chance of getting it contaminated from whatever he might want on his land. So he decided to go with this spot, and he waited a whole week to call the drillers. He was so nervous, and he finally called them, and they went down, and I think I said 250 to 280 feet deep. And they got about 240, and he said, is there water? And they said, nope, not enough for you to have a well. And so they left, and half an hour later, the well driller called Kevin, his name was Kevin, an engineer at his work, and said, you hit payload. We had so much water coming out of there that we had to move the rig before it got swamped, and we couldn't get it out. So he had 20 some odd gallons, 26, I guess. I can't remember exactly, but I had said 10 to 16. I always try to go a little low because it's better that they find more water than less than you said. Some dowsers just find the spot, but I find the depth, how deep, and I also find about how many gallons a minute. Now, you're wondering, how do I do this? Well, first, I find the well with my L rods, and they open up for me where the edge of the tributary is. Then I close my rods, and I walk to see how big this tributary is. What am I dealing with, a foot wide or 20 feet wide? And when I get how big it is, let's say it's 8 feet wide. Okay, then which place in this 8 feet would be best to put the drill? Because as you know, as water turns and curves, one side as it turns maybe to the left, the higher side might not have as much water as the lower side. And so that happens underground, of course, and on the top of the ground you see it. So you want to have them set the drill so it goes down to the better spot. And I always give them about how many gallons. Then I tell them how to place the rig. Now, how I learned this, as I said, you learn by doing. I was on a site one time, and the contractor was there, and he told me that he had done this many times before, not dowsing, but there when they placed the rig. And he said, if they place the rig perpendicular to the tributary, then when there's motion, it will go back and forth in the tributary. If it's the other way, and there's a little motion, and they're going down, say they go 400 or 500 feet, and it's off just a slight bit. It could go right outside the tributary in New England. Maybe not in Florida, but in New England, the tributaries are smaller, and you have to hit the tributary. So I thought that was a piece of information I was very glad to have. The second story I want to tell you about, I was called to douse a well because a well had run pretty dry. And they had done a bunch of loads of wash, and then they took a shower, and there was no water. And this had happened over and over. So there were 4 people living in the house, and they had to space their showers and their washing machine, and hardly ever could they water the garden because they didn't have enough water. So I found 2 sites for them, and I was starting to leave, and he said, oh, by the way, that's where the old well is. So I walked over to it, and I said, oh, that looks like a really nice well. And he said, yeah, when I first moved here 60 years ago, it was wonderful. And he was the older one, and his children lived with him. And he said, but now we get about a half a gallon. I said, how do you know you get half a gallon? He said, oh, I put stones, and I count the seconds that they drop into the water till I hear it hit. I said, oh, that's interesting. So he said, would you douse it? And I said, yep, half a gallon. And I said, do you mind if I just see how close the tributary is? And I doused, and it was 8 to 10 feet away. Not too far. I had heard of people moving water before with their mind, and some I've heard move water with rods and different things. And I had tried moving water with my mind on another job, and I never could get feedback because when I called several times to ask if they had more water flow, she says, I don't really know. We don't dare use enough to find out because we don't want all that sludge coming in. But she said, we haven't run out, and we have watered our yard, and we have done some loads, so could be. Well, that wasn't good enough for me. So here's another one, and I need to move the water maybe. So I asked the water, because water has consciousness just like we do. Everything has wavelength and consciousness. So I tapped into the consciousness of water, and I said, are you willing to move into the old well that is not too far away? I got yes. Do you need help? Yes. So I figured, okay, that's probably the rods. And so I said, I need some steel rods. Do you have any? Being a farm, he said, yes. He went to the barn, and he said, how many do you need? And I said, let me douse. And I needed, I can't remember, it was 6 or 8, quite a few. And so he pulled them out. He had them. After that, I used to carry some in my own car in case I had to do something like that again, and I did. So anyway, he brought them out, and I doused where to place them on the other side of the tributary away from the well. And my husband pounded them in, and actually we just placed them at first and then pushed them in carefully. And then I asked the water how many pounds they needed with a sledgehammer to move it into the well. And I get the answer, and then my husband would pound away on these rods. That's kind of what some dowsers call the pony, what is the pony show? Dog and pony show. You can do it with your mind, or you can do it physically so that their belief system is higher. So anyway, this was the dog and pony show. So we did it, and then how many days or weeks or months will it take for the water to go through solid ground? And I think we got about 15 days. So I told him. And then a couple months later, he called and he said, would you douse and see how many gallons are in my well now? I said, are you getting more water? He said, yes, and I'm waiting on the other well, that you doused to see if we get enough so we don't need that well that they were going to put in. And I said, you're getting between 4 and 5 gallons per minute. He says, I thought so. I said, well, what made you think so? He said, I dropped my stones in and counted the seconds. Old way of doing it. Funny. But anyway, So he said, I am going to write you a nice testimony. And I said, well, thank you. That would be nice. A year later, I had got no testimony. And I remembered, what happened? Well, some do, some don't. Some said promise and don't keep their promise, so I let it go. But he called me up, and he said, it's been a year. I want to know how many gallons in my well now. And I doused a little bit less than before, but it's a good 4 gallons. He said, I thought so. Now I will write your testimony. So a year later, he wrote his testimony for me. Since then, I have moved a number of other wells. And it sounds crazy, but if you stop and think about the veins in the body, and you go in to get blood for a blood test, and the doctor finds, or the nurse finds the blood vein, and she goes and sticks the pin in there, and guess what? She doesn't get it. I don't know if that's happened to you, but mine moved too readily. And then she wiggles around with the needle, and I said, please don't do that. Just try again. And they go out, and they may try 2 or 3 times because my veins like to move around. Well, it's like that. The ground, the water is Mother Earth's veins. And so they do sometimes move. In this case, it was kind of on a hill that I just talked about, and these large logging trucks were traveling on this road, and so the earth was jiggling, and of course that was what moved the lines. Other times it can be construction in the neighborhood or at a distance near the tributary upline that causes it to move. Many different reasons. And this is the most interesting story that I want to tell you. I had a call from in New Hampshire, and they wanted me to come find a well on a hillside. And she explained to me that there were many wells already on the hillside. And I said, really? Well, why can't you just use one of the wells that's there? I can check that out. She says, they're all deeded to people. I said, they're deeded to people? Evidently in the late 1800s and early 1900s, the water was, when they got good water, they would do a well in land I guess nobody owned or whatever, and they would deed them to different people in the town, and that was the case. So I said, well, find the ancestors, call them all, and ask if they will relinquish the deed to the well and let you use it. So she did. And she called me back about a few weeks later and said, no one will relinquish the deed to their well. Would you believe it? I said, you explain them? You bought the land? And I did. And she said, no one. They all want to keep the deed, and they don't want me using it. That is really crazy. So I went out to find a new well. I went all over that hillside. They must have had a dowser find them in the beginning. Must be, because I could only find about 2 gallons per minute. And this was a family of 5. They needed more than 2 gallons. They wanted to have some gardens. They wanted to have some animals. And that was not going to work. So discouraged, I said, this hillside is big. If we find one quite a distance away, you would have a lot of piping, but maybe there's something up in the hillside. And she says, okay, let's look, because at least it would come down through. I wouldn't need a pump. It would just come right into the house. So we agreed, and we started trudging up this hill. And it was pointing right towards this very large pile of brush. And I said, no, I hope it's not under there. That would be bad. Well, wouldn't you know, it was under the brush. And it was a huge pile, and, of course, the leaves were gone, but it was a lot of brush. So we started clearing it away. And when we got almost to the end, we could see as beautiful well, and it had all this stonework. I mean, it was so much nicer than any of the other wells on the hillside, and all this stonework was laid around it. So I started dowsing. It was good water, a lot of water. It was just perfect. We were so excited. And then I asked the question every single dowser needs to ask: are you willing to be the water for this family? Everybody needs to ask that because there are reasons why it can't be. Well, I got no, and I'm thinking, what? There's no one else up here, and this family needs the water. And I kept asking in different ways, and every time I would get a definite no. So she and I are looking at each other wondering why. Well, as you dowsers know, you can't ask why. You have to ask a question that can be asked in yes or no. So I asked again, and no. Is there a reason? Yes. I tried to think of everything, anybody else using it as a problem with the water. I mean, nothing. It was nothing. And then finally I thought, in those days, sometimes people would use spirits to protect something. You see it on TV all the time, these ancient treasures in these caves in Egypt, and they put spirits over it and protect it, and you can't go near it. It's going to cave in on you. And, you think this is right out of a crazy story. But, I thought I'd ask, is there a spirit over this well protecting it for some reason? I got yes. I'm thinking, whoa, I hit it. Would you be willing to leave and let this family have the water? No. Oh, boy, now what do we do? And there's no other water that we can find except that gallon or so earlier that I had found. So I said to her, I remove ghosts and spirits and clear land and houses and people, and I'm just going to talk to this spirit and find out what's going on. If you don't mind, I'm just going to close my eyes and talk to him in my mind. So I did. And what I asked was, I first thanked them for their service over this well. And I explained to this spirit that the family that were using the well were no longer alive, and we could not find any living relatives or any deed or anything that belonged to this well. This family of 5 were moving to this land, and they desperately needed water. Their house was pretty well built, too, like the other one. And they desperately need a source of water, and this looked like the only source. I said, so you see, it's a problem. You're stationed there, and your job is really done. And then I explained about evolution and how this spirit could go on to another, maybe more exciting job or evolution of what he was to do and how great it would be and exciting. And this job had been there for a long, long time and everything. And so then I asked, would you be willing now to leave and let this family have this? Well, I got a reluctant, so I said, I think you need to do the same thing, I said to her. Just talk to the spirit. So she closed her eyes and talked to the spirit. And when we were done, we asked, would you be willing now to let this family who desperately needs this water have this as their well? And we got a yes. And we're willing to leave, move on, and let this family have it. Phew. So I told her how to clean up the well so that they could use it. She actually went and brought in a professional, but I cleaned up wells before, so I knew how to do it. But anyway, you wonder sometimes after you do a job like that if it's real or if you conjured some crazy story up in your head. I am sure you all think that. Especially if you're fairly new at it and you think, am I making up things or am I not? And we all
That's a great story, Carol. That's a great story.
It's not over yet.
If I could interrupt you for a minute, we have an announcement from Tick.
Oh.
So he's going to come on. Tick, are you on the call? You might have to unmute yourself there. Okay, so Tick, are you on the call here? Okay. He texted me that he was coming on in a minute, so.
Text you that he's on. Write him back and say, text you when you're on, and I'll just stop. The story's almost over, but we all think maybe we conjured up in our head, and we like to know if we could have some confirmation sometimes. Well, the next morning, I got a phone call, and the girl said, you won't believe what happened last night. She said, I slept out overnight in our new home. They were from Massachusetts, moving to New Hampshire. And she said, I woke up in the middle of the night and sat right up in my bed. There was this very, very loud groaning. She said it scared me out of my wits because she's in the house in the woods all by herself. And she said, then I remembered this spirit and you asking if it would be willing to leave, and I figured that's what it was. I said, so what did you do? She said, I started talking to it and telling it, and calming it down and thanking it for its service like we had done, and thanking it for letting us have the use of the water, and I appreciated, us moving on and letting us have it. And she said, as I did that, the sound just faded away. And I thought, we're not making any of this up. This is all real. And it's so exciting when you have confirmation for what you're doing. So I just wanted to add that part, which I think is exciting. Okay. We could stop and have a few questions, and then I could move on to a few other areas that I do in dowsing.
Okay. So
I'm back.
Tick was muted.
I'm here.
So, okay, Tick. So he's going to go ahead with an announcement about the Dowsing Convention.
Right, and also about Beverly Rubik.
Right.
Tomorrow night I'm interviewing Beverly Rubik. She's going to be our keynote speaker at the Dowsing Conference, and that's going to be at 8 o'clock. The constant contact message went out today. She's going to talk about the biofield, with the biofield, its relation to body, mind, and spirit, and consciousness. She's going to talk about some of the clinical studies that have gone on it, around it, how the biofield affects our lives personally and humanity at large, talking about some subtle energy devices. And then she talked a little bit about the new water science with, I can't think of his name, Emoto. And also she was going to talk to us a little bit about 5G, what it is, why it's different than other types of microwaves, and how it affects us and how it affects our biofields. And also she was going to talk a little bit about 5G and coronavirus, and is there a relationship. So that should be kind of interesting, and I look forward to having folks come. And that'll be tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Again, the constant contact has the numbers and all that stuff on it. As far as
and
convention,
it's also on dowsers.org. So
it's also on dowsers.org, right? And as far as convention goes, looks like everything's going full steam ahead. We're ironing out some wrinkles tonight, and as I said, it looks like we're going to be using a format called Call Bridge as opposed to Zoom, and but it should be very nice. Should be quite a good experience for everybody, and hopefully everybody have a good time. So, is that it, Sherry? Would you like me to say more, or?
Well, if you have something else to say about it, I know that Beverly Rubik is a fantastically interesting scientist. Her talks are interesting. I've listened to several of them on YouTube, and she has done, various experiments with the biofield, which we call the aura, but she gave it a scientific sounding name, so I think that's kind of cool. Hey, does she do dowsing at all? What does she know about dowsing?
That's one of the questions that she's going to get asked, and how dowsing is, how dowsing can work with her battlefield work. So, yes, that's one of the questions.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, Tick.
You're very welcome. And was that Carol giving the story?
Yes.
Was that Carol's story? Carol, yes. Nice story.
Yes, and I wanted to say to you, are you having the basic school?
No. Okay. It's just going to be, it's just the Dowsing convention, just going to be hour-long speakers.
Okay.
And they'll be starting on Wednesday, I believe. The 3rd, is it? I think it's the 3rd. 1, 2, 3, yeah. I think starting on Wednesday the 3rd and going right on through. We'll have our annual meeting, and Beverly will be on probably Friday night, but it might be Saturday night. I'm not sure. I don't know right in front of me. I don't have it right in front of me. Yep.
Great.
Okay.
I appreciate all the updates, Tick. Thank you.
All right, Sherry. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Back to back to your great call.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I am really enjoying your stories, Carol. Yeah, and I think you said you had another one. I'm anxious to hear it.
Add one more thing to the water. I think it's important as a water dowser that you have a list of well drillers who will work or believe in dowsers, because I've had experience where they brought in a well driller and he refuses to put it where the dowser says and he wants to put it where he says. And that happened to me once, and then we had to move the water. So that's important to find out who would do what, actually drill where you say. So
very important. Very important.
Very important.
Had that experience too.
Yep. We all run into that sooner or later. Okay. Now, I do lots of other types of dowsing. I started out with health dowsing because of my wellness business. And so I do a lot of that, and I wrote a book, Dowsing Your Health, which had a lot of updated stuff from Dr. Herbert Parker, who I did study with. And it has a lot of instruction on how to use a pendulum and charts. I love charts because you can get so much information fast. Like you may have 20 different things that you're trying to find out and which one would work. And you can find it out really fast, or which one, and is there another one that would work. Or when you're dowsing vitamins, which one do I need the most? Okay, and which one, you may be really deficient on B complex, but you also need C, and you also need calcium. So which is the most important, am I most deficient in, and you'll get a reading. And so I have this book, and you can get it through ASD, or you can get it through my website, which is www.healthierlives.net. And you click on Dowsing there. However, I have a link there to order, and the guy who did all my webinars, which became DVDs, died. And so the link goes nowhere. I wished I'd known he was sick. I didn't even know he had cancer, and his wife just let everything go. Didn't know how to do any of that. And so I have someone else working on a new website which will actually stream my DVDs right into your computer or TV or whatever, and so that you can take the classes. And I have classes on why you want to learn to dowse and how to, all the tools, water dowsing, map dowsing, dowsing your health, dowsing your garden, and spiritual dowsing. And I think I'll come out with another one with dowsing stories, because you told me one, Sherry, that was neat, and I have so many stories. And I will tell you, in my book, I have all the systems in the body and pictures of the system. So when you're dowsing a system, you can pinpoint it to the area that you're having trouble with, so that you can go to your doctor and say, could you check out my pancreas or whatever. Now, I had a hearing problem, and I went to my chart on the hearing area, and I found that it was the little hammer that holds the little drum in my ear. And I thought, oh, evidently I have quite a bit of arthritis in my body, and evidently that little hammer is kind of stuck on just one ear. And so the sound wasn't vibrating to the drum in order to get the sound in so that I could hear as well. And I thought, I have no idea what to do for this. I mean, I take a lot of supplements, and they help me in all kinds of ways. But this hearing problem with the bone, I don't know. So I put it to Spirit, and I said, okay, you're going to have to help me with this problem. Well, I was at the Dowsing convention, and I had my book and all my DVDs, and this lady was across the way from me at the convention, and she saw I was very busy because I think that was the first year I had the DVDs, and people were coming over buying them and my book, and she said, I got to see what you have, and whatever you have, I want it. And I said, really? She said, but I don't want to pay you. I want to swap. And I thought, oh, I hope she's got something I want. And then I showed her my book, and I happened to just open I don't know how it happened, but that's the way Spirit works. I opened to the part on the hearing. And I said, I have a hearing problem, and I dowsed it, and this is what the problem is, the little bone that holds the eardrum. The Tiffany drum, I call it. And she looked at me, and she said, what have you done? I said, well, I asked Spirit to help me because I have no idea. She says, you're looking at it. I'm your answer. And I thought, what? She says, I'm your answer. I said, well, what do you do? She says, I'm an audiologist. I said, what? She says, yeah, I work with sound and healing. I said, oh, really? So I said, I'll be over. When I have a break, I'll be over. And so I picked up some of her stuff, and she said there's a sound for every area in the body. Now, I'd love to study with her, but she never came back to the convention, and I didn't have time to go and hear her when she was there. And she's on the West Coast, and if I could find her name, you guys ought to look her up. But anyway, she's in California. I'll tell you that, and she's an audiologist. Maybe you can find her that way. If not, I'll see if I got anything left of hers that I had so that I can give you her name. Anyway, she said there was a sound, and for anyone who has a problem with their eyes or their ears or headaches or anything in the head, the sound is N. Now, you sing it, and you put your tongue, when you say N, your tongue goes to the top of the roof of your mouth, and it vibrates your whole roof, and after a minute, your whole head is vibrating. And I can see where that might shake through this little bone. I think it is some better, but I don't do it enough. Sometimes when you're stopped at a stoplight, that's when you do it. So if you want to try it now, just stick your tongue up and say, and you feel the tip of your tongue just vibrating the top, and your whole tongue starts to vibrate. So you might want to play with that and see how it does for you. But I've always wanted the systems in the book, and I do have that. And I have pH and allergies and salt and sugar level and vitamins and minerals and amino acids and drinking water and chakras. So anyway, it's charts on all those things. So you can go look at that. Okay, and anything else I wanted to tell you? I've done quite a bit with finding lost items, and I know, Sherry, I sent you one testimony, but I want to tell you one story because if this ever happens to you, maybe it's a warning to you. So I had a woman call me, and she had gold certificates that she had inherited, and she had lost them. And so I'm dowsing, and they were behind the dryer behind the wall. And she said, they were there, but they came in and they put in a new dryer, and I took them out of there. So now where are they? So I went back to dowsing, and every time I try to find them, I get a wicked, wicked headache. And I tried, and I'd wait 2 or 3 days, and I'd try again, and it's just, I finally called her, and I said, I can't do this. I'm not going to, you can have your money back. I just cannot do this because every time I do this, I get a wicked headache. And she said, I'm sorry. I should have called you. I found the receipt where I had cashed them all in. Sometimes, if I had asked, did she cash them in, I probably would have got a yes. But because she was so desperate to find them, that never entered my head. So now, as another thing, is it even possible to find them? Do they even have them or whatever? So, and I have a bunch of stories about finding lost things, and stories are fun. But that one, I went over a couple of them with my husband, and he said, oh, you got to tell that one because someone might have a similar problem. So I think I've used up an hour, so I think it's time for, unless you want another story, it's time for questions.
Well, you can go ahead and tell another story because basically you've only been on for 45 minutes yourself. So.
Well, I got a story. I've got a story about a wedding ring. A guy called me, and he says, we've only been married 6 years, and my wife is having a fit because I lost my wedding ring. Could you help me find it? And I said, well, I can try. You never say, yes, you can, or no, you can't. You just try. And I said, but I'll have to charge you, and because your time is valuable, and I realized that. When I first did water, I charged $50, and my son's girlfriend said, how many people in the state of New Hampshire douse for water? I said, I only know of one other. She says, you're telling me in the whole state of New Hampshire you only know one other dowser who douses for water? She says, you know a lot of dowsers? I said, I know hundreds of them. Yeah, we have a whole dowsing club here of 45 people. And she says, and none of them in your group douse for water? I said, no, I'm the only one, and Jim, this other guy. And she said, and you're doing it for $50, and sometimes you travel a couple of hours? That's ridiculous. She said, you should charge for your time. You are a professional. Charge for your time. Charge for the job. And I increased not just $50, but a few $100s. And at first people were reluctant, but I said, but I guarantee my work, and it's up to you. And they'd hire me. So, and since then I've gone up another $100. So it is worth, when you get good at it, it is a profession. It is worth getting paid. So I do get paid for most everything, unless it's a close thing. So this is a story about a guy who called me and told me his prized old guitar was stolen right out of his house. Now, there were only 4 people, his 2 sons, his wife, and himself. No one else had a key. So first of all, I went through each one, and he thought maybe one of the sons where he'd have a little trouble before with the law, and I got no. And I got it was his wife, but I didn't want to tell him because I didn't know it was connected. She didn't steal it, but it was connected to her. So I kept dowsing, and I found out where it was taken to. There was a party in the neighborhood, and while he was at the party, the wife had gone in and got the guitar and given it to her boyfriend to sell. She had a lover on the side, and that's things you find out when you're doing this is scary sometimes. But anyway, and I traced it to a place in Massachusetts where it was going to be sold. And so I told him it was in Massachusetts. He said, how did it get there? Well, I got the car and the license plate, and we were tracking it down, and evidently he told his wife. And her boyfriend went and got it and brought it back and put it on the doorstep. The next morning he woke up, and he called me up, and he said, I'm so glad I don't have to pay you because it's at my doorstep. Somebody brought it back. Well, it's because I was hot on the trail, and the wife knew it. And I never did tell him that she was having an affair and the boyfriend needed some money, and this is how he was getting the money. I don't know if they were planning on doing something together or not. I didn't go any further. That was the end of it. But you do find out all kinds of things when you're dowsing. And I do have a ghost story. Do you want that?
Yeah, I've been looking forward to that one.
Well, the spirit story was kind of like a ghost, but it wasn't. I do quite a bit of sending spirits to the other side of the veil, and I know a lot of dowsers do this. And I do house clearings and land clearings and body clearings. And I had a woman call me, and she said, I just feel that my husband and I both have some spirits hanging around us. And would you check? And I checked. She had about 17 and he had about 39. And so she said, can you remove them? And I said, I think so. I never promise, because you never know what strange thing you're going to come into. So they were all willing to go to the light after I did my ceremony and explained it to them. She called 2 or 3 weeks later, and she said, I want to know if we have any spirits. I doused her, and I said, no, you have none. What about my husband? He had 18. She says, I thought so. Can you please remove them? I said, sure. Maybe some that came back, I don't know. But so I'm in the office. I'm doing my thing. My husband's out in the other room doing his thing. And so I proceeded to do what I usually do. I talked to them, and I explained to them about their evolutionary journey and going to the light, and would they be willing to. Most times they are, if you explain it right, and once in a while not for some reason. And one time a doctor had 3 spirits that helped him in his surgery, so I left them. So, it's not always they have to go to the light, but you do have to douse around it to find out. Anyway, as I was dowsing, for some reason, as I was talking to these spirits that followed this man home from wherever, I said, I want you all to know that all is forgiven. God loves you, and all is forgiven. No matter what you've done, it's okay. God loves you, and you can go to the light. And then I got such a wash of love that I've never felt anything like this in my life before. It was so strong that I dropped my pendulum, my head went down on the desk, and I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. I never experienced anything like this. I had no idea what was going on. And about 10 minutes later, my husband comes in and he says, honey, are you all right? What's going on? And I had to finish sobbing before I could explain to him, I don't know, honey. I just felt such a wash of love that it's just nothing like I've ever experienced before. And so he sat down next to me, and I said, I got to go find out what's going on. And so I went back, and it was these spirits, and I asked if they were ready to go to the light, and they all were. And so I made a portal, and they went to the light. So I called the woman back, and I told her about this, and she said, oh, my God, that makes sense. I said, well, what is the story with it? She said, my husband's uncle died, and he's a Catholic priest, and we went to the funeral, and they were all saying such beautiful things about, he was such a beautiful man, and they were all saying beautiful things about him. And then we went to the graveside where he was, put in the ground. And I said, oh, my gosh, it just hit me. That's it. When they went to the graveside and these priests, it was a priest's graveyard, saw these 2 people completely in the light with no spirits around them, they wanted to know what was going on because they hadn't gone to the light. And so they followed this man who was more open to allowing them than she was, because I teach people how to keep their light and keep themselves filled. What did Jesus say? If you cast out the spirits and you have an empty house, they'll come back and bring all their friends. So you must fill it up. You must fill your house with love and light. And so I teach people how to do that. And so, because she was trying to do it for him and evidently may missed a few days. But that was it. These priests had followed him home, and they were good men, but felt guilty about something they had done in their lifetime. They were supposed to be above human, and everybody's human, even priests, and probably had done some things, and I dowsed if that was it, and I got yes. And so that was what happened, and they all went to the light. And she said, I'm so happy you called back, because I'll tell my husband. He'll be so pleased. So you never know. You never know what is going to happen when you douse. And we all have crazy stories. And as they say, I think I'll do a DVD on stories someday and get yours, Sharon.
That's a great idea, Carol, really.
I think it is. I think we all need to.
We need to take a little break here. Susan McNeil Spooler has an announcement about the upcoming West Coast Conference. So we've got another item that we need to talk about.
So our keynote speaker is Maria Wheatley, and she's from London. She's a second-generation dowser. Her father was a master dowser in the UK, and she will be speaking on the Egyptian pendulum dowsing and the secrets of Egypt. She'll be speaking live from London, 4 o'clock in the morning her time, and 8 o'clock at night our time on Saturday night, July 4th. So she'll be available to answer questions. So she was coming in from London to speak for our conference at www.dowserswestcoast.org. And our conference will be free. Over 5 days, 24 hours a day. All dowsing, all the time. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you for all your continuous effort. I know you're working on this every day. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a labor of love.
Fantastic. Jeanette, I'm wondering if you have any questions or comments. If I think you're still on the call here.
Yes, Miss Carol, once again, you are just a delightful person. You've got so much energy, and I love you regaling these stories to us. Now, I've got a question on I love how you do the protocol where you are you say a prayer, and when you're with your clients, do you say your prayer for your protocol out loud so they can also be part of it? And then also, a second question is, are you using your tool, the pendulum, all the time, or are you just getting the information through deviceless dowsing and just your amazing awareness? Thanks.
I sometimes say it out loud and sometimes not. I think I use my intuition to see if they're open to hearing what I'm doing or not. So the answer is yes, no. Depends. And sometimes I can tell right away that these people are so spiritual. I was at one house and he said, I got to take the trees down, and I know that I have to ask the trees which ones don't mind being taken down. I've got to do it, and I don't know which ones, and so I helped them through that. But they're spiritual if they're even asking a question like that. So many times in just talking to them before I go out and do the well, I can tell how open. And if they're really open, I think they deserve to hear what I'm doing. I think it's a learning experience for them. I sometimes take rods and let them, try it. Sometimes I even give it to them. Depends. Sometimes I take my book. When I don't take it, they want it. And when I do take it, they don't. You never know. So I think it just depends, and you have to kind of use your intuition. As talking to spirits, I usually talk to them in my head, and then I use my dowsing to see if they got the information, Did they understand? In other words, when I'm talking to a spirit about going on to their evolutionary journey and going to the light, I'm talking to them in my head, and I'm asking them through the dowsing if they got the message and if they understand. And if it goes kind of back and forth, like sometimes happens, it means some did and some didn't. Do some of you understand? Are some of you ready to go to the light? And some of you don't understand, or I need to talk to more, or they don't want to go to the light, and then I'll talk to them again, and then I'll go back. But I will send the first lot when they're ready, and then I'll work with the rest. And with this doctor that I was doing, and 3 of them, when I asked, they said no, and it was a definite no. It was no wishy-washy no. It was a definite no. So I asked if they helped the doctor with his surgeries, and they said yes. I said, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you let me know so that I will not try to ask you to go do anything. You know what you're doing. So, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, good. Do many of you use charts to dowse with?
Oh, I at least use charts every day. I made my own chart.
Well, yeah, I did too, and some of them are in my book too. So a lot of them, yeah. I have blank ones in my book for people to copy off, because you do want to make your own with your own questions or your own supplements that you take. And I'm going to tell you a real quick story about I had glaucoma. I don't have it anymore, but I did have it. And the doctor was trying this drug, and then 6 months I'd be allergic to it, and she'd try another one, and then I'd be allergic to it. So finally I went in and asked her, I said, I really need to dowse the rest of the drugs, because I can't keep going through this. I need to know what ones I can take and be all right. And she looked at me kind of funny. She says, you're a dowser? I said, yes. She went and shut the door. My husband didn't know if I should even tell her, but she went and shut the door. She sat down and she says, well, tell me about it. I just finished reading Witching and water witching. And I said, oh, really? And I had just read it that summer, too, so I knew what she was talking about. It's a story that takes place in Vermont, and the storyteller is the lawyer husband who doesn't understand. And he's trying to figure out his wife and daughter and their craziness. But anyway, it's a very good. He believes in it in the end, just like my husband, who had an awakening and realized, wow, this is all real. But anyway, so I dowsed it, and I got the right one, and it was fine ever after. And after cataract surgery, my pressure lowered, and I don't need it anymore. So that's kind of neat. Of course, I'm taking all the supplements for the eyes, so that helps too.
Great. That's a great story. Yeah. Ed, I'm wondering if you have any questions there or comments.
Oh, I'm just going to say, Carol, this was an absolute excellent presentation, and I really totally enjoyed it. Thank you, thank you.
Okay. I am going to be speaking on sick home syndrome at the National Convention East Coast, and I will also be speaking on a mini one on it on next Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock to the Minnesota Dowsers here. I'm the president of the Minnesota Dowsers here in Florida, and I'll be speaking at that on my own free Zoom, so we may have to come back and finish, how that works if you have Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really would like to get in on that call, have Sherry give you my email and let me know, because I check people in as they come in.
Okay.
Just so we won't get any old buddy coming in on a call.
Okay, so if you could send me the information to me, so I'd like to get on and listen to you also.
Sure. I can send that to you, and just send me. Sherry, could you do me a favor and just take a list? If there's anyone on the call, they know you, they could contact you, and you just send me a list so I could check them off as they come in.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And we have about 5 minutes for everybody to check in, and I can just cut. Usually we have a different speaker, and I just lead it. But this time I'm the speaker, so I'm not sure whether I need somebody to be host. I don't know. Probably, maybe. I don't know. I haven't done much. I haven't done that much of this. This is new to me.
Yeah, sounds like you'd be the host. Okay, so you can email me, sherryhope@gmail.com. So that's spelled SHARRYHOPE.
You've been sending me emails, so I'll just do a reply.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, people on the line.
And you might want to give everybody the information on how they can get your books and any other information you want to give out about yourself. Go ahead. Okay.
My books, you can get. You can't get them, but you can go look at what it is. It's www.healthierlives.net. HEALTHIERLIVES.net. Click Dowsing, and then you can click Contact Me. And actually, the book is $38, and the DVDs, depending on which one. But if you want them all, I give you the first one first, because the first one I don't feel is as good as the others, just because we were kind of practicing, and I didn't think we were, but I didn't think it came out quite as good. And it's why would you want to be a dowser, and what professional dowsers know that other people don't know, so it's kind of neat.
Okay.
And my books, the books are there, and the DVDs are there. If you want to contact me, my phone number is 603-381-4654. My email is the same as my website, Carol@healthierlives.net. That's HEALTHIERLIVES.net. If you're interested in the health products that I carry, you just send me an email, and I'll give you a link so you can go take a look. That's a different website.
Okay, we had some clattering noises there, so it was a little hard to get all of that.
What would you like me to repeat? All of it, or just the end, or?
Just your phone number, I think will do.
Okay, because they can call me and ask for anything. It's 603-381-4654. I can give you our home line too if you want. That's my cell phone.
Okay. If you want to give that out, that's up to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, because some people might be from the south, and this 941-251-7290. And I also have another site, wizarddeaver@hotmail.com.
Okay, great. I think Jeanette had some more comments, and then we'll kind of close up here.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank you on behalf of American Society of Dowsers for using this opportunity for the famous Sherry Hope and that famous Ed Stillman to have this almost 3-year conference going on, Water Dowsing Mastermind conferences going on monthly. It's a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and we just thank you for putting in your labor of love. And for Miss Carol Gader, we can't thank you enough for walking us through the beginning of your dowsing, starting with Michelle Wright's gardening book, and then meeting people at the conventions. And then, you talked about how your dowsing wasn't so great, but then you were able to meet a master dowser, Paul Severny, and he was your teacher.
I really
And now not oddly enough, but Ed and Sherry are both award winners for the Paul Sevigny Awards for doing over 1,000 water wells. So,
wow! I don't know if I've got that many or not, but I got 4 books full of them. I used to keep track of all of them, and I kept running out of space, and then I'd have to buy another one, and now they're just piling up.
Well, obviously, if you're in this for many decades, it's just a testament of, how good you are, and thanks for walking us through how you stay focused. You're quiet, you say a prayer. Depending on your clients, you'll say it out loud, or you will do it privately. You're using your awareness and intuition. And if they're going to be talkative, you ask them to stay 10 to 15 feet away. So this is excellent for reminders for all of us. And what is also nice is you want to, for all of us learning how to water well douse, is...
Wait a second, Jeanette.
Uh-huh.
Okay, somebody's typing on the computer. Can you mute yourself, please?
Yeah, very loud.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jeanette. Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks for saying something. We appreciate that using the compatibility with the well drillers, because the well drillers who understand the dowsing, anybody who's been doing water well dowsing long enough can understand a sympathetic driller and someone who is aware enough that dowsers really are here to help the client and the land and the driller.
Right.
And I think what was really awesome is you don't just do water dowsing, is you are into this health. And I wonder how many people are going to be fixing their ears with doing the vibration of their tongue on the top of their roof, their mouth with a sound.
And you have to say and then let it vibrate.
And then even with the lost items, if there's something amiss, where the headaches, the wedding ring or the missing guitar. We had the wonderful ghost stories and clearing of the land. We certainly are learning a lot from your personal experiences, and it just reminds us to check in with ourselves, check our dowsing for confirmation of yes and no. And thanks for sharing that wave of love, because sometimes the best things in life are free, and there is no amount of money that can replace that moment you had of gratitude with a wisping of love and gratitude for the dowsing work you did. And if you want to get to learn more about Carol, please call her, visit her website, healthierlives.net, or call her 603-381-4654. And if you would like to hear more of Miss Carol Gader, then email sherryhope@gmail.com for her Zoom conference at 3 p.m. Florida time for her Minnesota Dowsers this Sunday. Thank you so much, Sherry and Ed and Miss Carol Gader. It was a pleasure having all of you here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeanette and Ed and Carol, especially for a fantastic talk. I really appreciate that. And do you have any last-minute comments here before we close off?
I would say happy dowsing, everybody.
Yeah. Perfect.
It's so fun. I just love it.
We're with you on that.
Right.
Definitely happy dowsing. Okay, take care, everybody, and we'll see you next month, third Monday of the month of June. So I don't have my calendar right here, so I'm not sure what day that is, but we'll be meeting back at 5 o'clock, third Monday of June.
June 8th. June 8th.
Third
15th.
Monday?
15th.
Close. June 15th. Okay, great.
That's the third Monday. That's the third Monday.
Yep,
Third Monday. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
We're looking forward to seeing everyone at the West Coast Conference streaming and American Society of Dowsers streaming. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Ed.
You bet.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.